Hey guys, it's Donald the Solo RPG Guy coming at you with another review. This time I'm taking a look at a game system referred to as the Goal System Delves by Scott Pyle. This game was kickstarted a while ago, I think, 2012, and I only heard about it because I came across one oddball video on YouTube by talking about games, and I checked it out, and it seemed to be an interesting system, and it was a system I never heard of before, so I decided to give it a go. Uh, the basic premise, the main mechanic, is you roll a d6 dice pool. 4s, 5s, and 6s are successes, with the 6 counting as 2 successes, or in this case, they call them goals. If you hear me say goals, it's the same thing as successes. It's designed both as a skirmish game as well as a tabletop role-playing game. So if you're just one of those type of people that like to bust down doors, kill monsters, take their stuff, this might be a game for you. Now, unfortunately, trying to get a hold of the printed copy is going to be difficult. Like I said, this game came out in 2012, and I actually had to contact Scott Pyle himself to get a copy of one of the few copies that remained. But on the good side is it's simple enough that you really don't need to refer to the book a whole lot once you get familiar with the system. It's that easy. So with that, I'm going to now jump over to the PDF so you can get a look on the inside and see if this will be a game that you'd be interested in. Alright guys, we're going to do a quick overview of the goal system. You can see it's got some pretty old school art in there. Kind of goes back to the day, late 70s, 1980s kind of art. Scott Pyle and all these people are the ones that created the game. A little side note, if you're into superheroes, both either as a skirmish game or a role-playing game, he has quite a few superhero type games. So if you're a superhero kind of player, you also might want to check his stuff out at DriveThruRPG, and I'm going to put the links down below. But it's a real simple, easy read. 255 pages, I think. Actually, no, 243 printed pages and then a couple of player aids on the back. So it's real, I mean, it sounds like a lot, but it's really, really simple once you see how the book is laid out. We get through our backers. Obviously, you know what a skirmish is, or most people should if they're a subscriber to this channel. Model count, it just merely means low model count, and each model represents a character. Power 6, rolling a 6 in goal delves is special. Whenever a model rolls a 6 on a throw, it counts as 2 goals, which I mentioned before. Some abilities will give you re-rolls. It tells you how to handle unopposed goal rolls. The target numbers, as you can see, it's real easy to remember, 1 through 8, with 1 being easy, 2 being routine, 3 being challenging, and on your way up. Chance roll, that's simply you just roll 2d6. And see how many goals show up. That has to do with basically setting up your random encounters or any other type of random roll. Roll 2d6 for initiative. Your character consists of the following. You choose a race. Now, I believe this book has 12 races in it. Let me double check here. I believe it's 12. We'll go through and we'll see. You got 4 traits, which is really easy to remember. Your class, one of your ability scores is strength. That determines your damage. Your defense, how hard it is for you to be hit. Your toughness, your chances of resistance to injuries. Level, move, hit points, wound capacity. I'm going to go ahead and explain this one real quick. Whenever your character is knocked down to 0 hit points, he's not considered dead just yet. You make a wound roll check. I believe that's what it's called, a wound roll check. That's what I call it anyway. And if you survive, then you're just knocked unconscious. However, you will lose a wound point. Each character starts with a wound count of 4. And then, of course, the more wound points you have on you, the less dice you roll on your subsequent rolls after that. That simulates, the long-term injury. You also have fate points, which if you're familiar with any RPGs, Fate, Fortune, that kind of stuff, this gives you a chance to do some re-rolls and change the outcome. Spells, there are a few spells in the game. Wouldn't be really a Magic game if it didn't have spells. Alignment is real simple. There's only 3 alignments: good, evil, neutral. Creature type, if you're playing a creature class. Combat round is basic, your normal kind of stuff. Roll initiative, and then each person acts in order of initiative. You get a move action, and then your main combat action or whatever. Anything that's not combat is considered a move, and it takes off your movement rate. So, and in this game, you can move, attack, and if you still have any movement left, you can continue your move. Talks about how to measure control area. This is pretty much like your threat area in a role-playing game, usually an inch around. You may pre-measure at any time. This is obviously for the skirmish side of things, which also could apply to the role-playing side of things if you wanted to go gridless. This game is designed, you can either play it on a grid, square, on a hex grid, or with no grid at all. I did both with a grid and without a grid, and there was no issues. Your basic moving around, moving through models, special actions such as forcing doors, hiding, overcoming an adventure challenge. Overcoming an adventure challenge is real simple. You will take your class dice, depending on your class, roll those dice and look for a certain amount of goals to accomplish said task based on whatever the target number is. Certain classes get certain bonuses, as well as certain classes have a lower target number just by default. Combat. Combat is real simple. It's literally 4 dice rolls. The person attacking will roll their d6. The person defending will roll their d6s. You will see who has the most amount of goals. If the defender wins the goals, meets or beats, then the defender's not hit. If, however, the attacker does manage to get more goals than the defender, then when he rolls his damage, he will roll more additional dice equal to the amount that he went over. So if the attacker rolled 7 successes versus a defender who rolled 5, that's a bonus of 2. When the guy rolls his damage, he will roll 2 additional dice. And damage is pretty much done the same way. It's your amount of damage that you roll based on your skill and your weapon versus that particular guy's toughness based on his overall toughness and armor. Boom, simple, done. 4 dice rolls, and that round of combat is pretty much done. You have a chance to knock back opponents. There's a target number to knock them back. Range combat works the same way, and of course you have your standard firing into close combat, firing from a close combat, whether or not you can see targets, attack ranges, all that kind of stuff, which you normally expect to see in an RPG or a skirmish game. Rules on drowning, being immobilized, the wounds and knockouts, which I mentioned before. When a character suffers the loss of his last HP, he also suffers 1 wound and risks death. He rolls in the save versus death table. If you make your save, you just take another wound roll or another wound point. If you fail, time to call the Resurrectionist Cleric in to bring you back to life. That's what it means by severe damage. There's the save versus death rolls and how the target number will increase the more wounds that are sustained. Obviously, rules for healing. How weapons work, special maneuvers like aim shot, disarm, bypass the shield, things of that nature. All real easy. Throw someone around. If you want to toss that goblin around, by all means, toss him around. Random directions. How to use your fate points. You can spend 1 fate point to pass a check on the save versus death table, 1 fate point to re-roll your entire dice pool, 1 fate point to gain a second combat or special action. Once per adventure, you can use a free action and spend a fate point to regain 1+ level HP. Consider that your, what do they call it in the Dungeons & Dragons board game? The healing surge kind of thing. You can spend 2 fate to negate the loss of all damage from single attack, or spend fate to power class abilities and recast spent spells as your class allows. Character creation, party creation. Character creation is simple. You can just go through here and pick your class. Each class is broken down into 2 subgroups. Like the ranger can be a bow specialist or a two-handed specialist. The wizard class, the mage class, could be either a wizard or a bard. Plus, there's nothing in here that stops you from creating your own classes. There are rules in here to create your own type of class. So if you envision your character being different than the ones presented here, you by all means can make that adjudication and change your basically how your class works. I had to wet my whistle there. You basically start off with 4 dice in each of your 4 traits. Each class has a favored class, which will give them an additional die in the appropriate trait. There's your races: dwarf, elf, gnoll, gnome, goblin, half-elf, halfling, half-orc, and human, kobold, lizardman, orc. And like I said, in this game, you can also just make up your own races. If you have a particular race you like to play, you probably can come up with a dragonborn or a tiefling, or I know some people just like playing weird races. You can probably come up with your own. Here's the rules for adding new races and half races. Rules on size. Choosing your class and class traits. How much each costs. Building your own class. Here's an example of a druid. Druid, you have the choice of being a atavistic druid, which is essentially the shapeshifter, or the keeper druid, which is essentially one that has a companion. And it goes through what happens when you go up in level. As you can see, in most cases, you get additional rerolls or additional dice to your traits. On occasion, you will get an additional hit point. If you're a spellcaster, you will get new spells every once in a while. And then here's an example of a character right here, the half-orc druid. As you can see, it's real simple. 5 ability scores, a couple of keywords, your equipment, fate, move, and hit points. Literally, your characters can fit on an index card, which for playing solo makes it quite easy to handle. And then, of course, you have the fighter, mage, priest, ranger, both the archer and the bladesman, like I said, the bow specialist or the twin dual weapon master, thief, acrobat and assassin, items and their rarities, how armor works. As you can see, it gives you a bonus die to your type toughness, and of course it's got a point cost for when you're building a war band for a skirmish type game. You can also kind of consider this your cost in treasure, maybe. It does have a unique treasure system where you don't actually keep track of every individual gold piece. There's some equipment. You had your finishing touches, which is literally just adding a name, what alignment you are. Spells. There's not a whole lot of spells in here, but there is enough for your average gamer. Like Elf's Acid Arrow, Acid Missile. Sounds a whole lot like Melf's Acid Arrow. Arcane Missile, which is basically like your magic missile. Things like that. Keep flipping through these spells real quick. Spiritual spells, these are more for your cleric and druid types. I mean, it's not a whole lot of spells, but it's enough to get by in most games. Powers. Here's where you can start using the points and the powers to build your own class if you're doing a role-playing side of the things, or you can use your points to build your warband if you just want to go in there, kill monsters, and take their stuff. And there's quite a long list of stuff there. We'll skim through all that. Building your own powers, it mentions how to build your own powers back here, how much points each should cost. So if you have another idea, if there's another spell or a special ability you see in another role-playing game, you can look here and see if you can convert it over. And of course, you got the same thing for the monsters. And there's nothing that stops you from mixing and matching. Nothing says you can't have a player character have some of these monstrous traits and the other way around. Talks about building your threats and creating your creature, your monster, whatever, your dragons, your undead. How to handle hordes, building hordes. There's a sample bestiary in here. Now, there's not a whole lot, but there's enough to get you started in most role-playing games. Now, this talks about going into making adventures. Now, we'll let you know when it comes to the adventures, this is a primarily combat-heavy game. I mean, after all, it is a skirmish game as well as a role-playing game. So you can expect this to be more geared toward the combat side of things as opposed to the role-playing side of things. And then here's your what they call the Adventure Challenge Master Table. This would probably be the only thing you'd probably have to reference in this book on a regular basis, or you can just copy it down. But it just tells you what the average target number would be for each class to do something in these respective categories. So if you look at the mage only needs a target number of 3 in the arcane, while the fighter needs a 5 or the thief needs a 5. But in the city, the thief has no problems because he only needs a 3, or in a dungeon only needs a 3. Resource, that kind of falls under, trying to find something, trying to find a place to buy armor, or to, try to find a magic item, I would believe. Social scale, as you can see, everyone has the same social ability of 2. However, if you are doing a pure role-playing game, if you are playing a bard, the bard gets a bonus. And then it talks about various. There's an adventure in here to get you started, and I'm going to skip over that real fast so as to not to give away any spoilers. All right, here we get into the experience and treasure. Like I said, the treasure in this game, you're not keeping track of each individual gold piece. Instead, you get what's called a treasure point. Every character who survives the adventure earns 1 experience point, and the party earns 1 treasure point towards its party wealth score. And you use that party wealth score for various things at the end of the adventure. And then based on the reward dice associated with the monsters or traps that you've encountered, you get to roll additional dice, and that will give you an additional XP or treasure bonus, or both. What you're supposed to do is take that pool of dice and divide them in half. Half those dice go towards the XP pile, the other half goes to the treasure pile. Talk about what to do if you're playing against somebody who's got more points than you in a warband, the skirmish level. Various use of fates, acquiring magic items, acquiring standard items, fencing loot. Because what this game wants you to do is, at the end of the adventure, go on these little side quests. And these little side quests can also help you in your solo role playing if you're looking for ideas on what to do and how to go about it. This will give you a base outline of how to do it. Lifting a curse, doing some mercenary work, resurrecting a comrade. Then it goes into some basics on how to role play a scene, visit the tavern, do some gambling, run a criminal enterprise for all you thief types out there, find new contacts, retreat in the wilderness, how to go about replacing dead party members or adding a new party member, especially on the skirmish side of things, magic items and how they work, brief list of some of the magic items. Of course, you can make your own. Just grab your DMG or whatever book you may have and go from there. Talks about how to do encounter balance, making the map, rewarding success. Here's some sample traps. Creating exotic environments. My last game, my party actually had to deal with this tilting floor. How to create and add artifacts into your game. Role-playing traits. Here's where, if you want to take this game more of to a role-playing level, how to add things like charming, crafting, intimidation, intuition, investigation, lore, and being a merchant. Some role-playing and magic, which is basically, in this case, they're referring to magic. You can do little minor tricks, the equivalent to cantrips in most other games. Becoming a herbalist, illusionist, lore master, some spiritual options, how to handle languages, and then there's a brief synopsis of the game world that he created. But this is real easy to adapt to any other game world you might have in your mind or that you've already have existing. Here's the appendix, talking about how to hire retainers. And of course, the play aids, the basics on how to play the game. Target numbers, chance rolls, combat, various weapons abilities, a couple of templates, and as you can see there, your simplified character sheet, which I just converted over to an index card anyway. My synopsis of the game, it's a pretty good game if you're looking for something simple, but not so simple like 4 Against Darkness. To me, 4 Against Darkness was just way too simple. I didn't like 4 Against Darkness. But this allows me to pretty much create what I want. If I don't feel like doing a full-fledged role-playing game, I can just, kick in the doors, kill the monsters, take their stuff. I did do a role-playing session where I skinned Ironsworn, the travel mechanics. I made a troublesome journey through the wild hinterlands or whatever, and then I had to go through another troublesome journey through the ancient ruins, and then a formidable dungeon infested with orcs. And it worked out pretty well. I didn't have to reference the book that often, so if you're one of those dead tree kind of guys that need the book, you really don't. Just get the PDF and just print out those last couple pages of player aids, and you should be fine. This is a pretty good system. Also, like I said, if you're into superheroes, he's got a lot of superhero games on DriveThruRPG. I'll be sure to put the links below. If you have any questions, feel free to post them down below in the comments. And until my next video, happy gaming.